Hello there to all our audience, and hello, of course, to our really special guest today, Jean Christophe Novelli. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jean Christophe, as part of the Spotlight on Rare Diseases and Innovative Therapies, where in this kind of virtual webinar series, we've been looking at a range of different sort of real-world evidence examples and rare disease examples from lots of different perspectives. Obviously, the discussion today is something that I know is very close to your heart, as we'll be discussing sort of the human angle of the impact of rare diseases on you and your family. So kind of diving straight in, I'd like to ask you firstly, if you could just please explain a bit about the experiences that you've had with rare diseases in your family.
I've got to say, for me, it has been two experience in my life. The first one, I was too young to understand because my mother got polio when she was 5 years old in a public pond. That was 85 years ago. So when I was brought up, and my brothers and my sister, obviously we realized our mom would never drive a car or ride a bike or, doing things. Going up the stairs was a big thing, and so on. But we never actually suffer or we knew something was not right when we used to go out as a family. We had to walk very slowly. My dad was always walking next to her and holding my mom. And when you compare the older you get with other families, you can see clearly something is wrong. But it's never been a complaint or an argument or, Therefore, so far, there was quite a bit of it's only later when I realized what polio was, obviously as a very significant rare disease. And especially in that time, 85 years ago, because my mom got saved. She got saved from, she was the only one saved from a variety of tests. Out of 16 people, she's the only one who survived. Therefore, you can see it's awful. Is why my mom? Why not? Yeah, why my mom? And but he happened to be just her got it and not her friends. Therefore, it's crazy. Anyway, then the next one, as I'm sure you know, our little son Valentino, at the age of 6 weeks, we both, Michelle and I, discovered something was wrong on his neck. We find out later, after 4 or 5 days, going about from doctors, phone calls, advice, and so on, then going to the Luton and Dunstable Hospital. We spent about 2-3 days, and Michelle spent 2-3 days over there. And finally, we were sent to Addenbrooke in Cambridge, which I have to say, all of them were fantastic. On the 5th day, we realized we spelled the name cancer. It in my life before. We never had this in our family before, and the worst is the baby, the little boy who, is. Therefore, how was it? It was difficult because you need to, like Michelle keeps saying, my wife. The thing is, we need to accept it. Not straight away, because we were still learning and trying to understand what will be this whole process to get over this, to get him back to normal or alive before, just alive. Therefore, I've got to say, we had, our main issue was the fact that when we found out it was a cancer, and when we realized it was neuroblastoma cancer, which obviously both of us didn't have a clue what it was, and obviously stage 4, which is very rare. It's a very rare disease in children's, with children's. We went through about 2.5 years, 3 years of trauma. Therefore, obviously, we become stronger unnecessarily because we had to. It was like we would do. I mean, I saw my wife changing day on day at the hospital to the point she would have swapped her life as much as I would have definitely want to do that. But we were also very vulnerable because we were still learning, trying to understand. The doctor were trying to inform us. And therefore, it was if you know exactly what's going on, you have a reason to be upset and, feeling very low and so on. But it was draining. It took long time. And even going through the first lots of the first surgery, which did not work out, then the second lot of chemo, which did not work out, and then finally to another final, which was the final chance for him to the final lot of chemo, which we knew if it did not work, it would be obviously, and it's been very traumatic. But when you have an explanation, you know what trauma is. But when you're not too sure, because we're very positive, we become very stronger. And also the mistake we did not make is to separate each other. To refuse to speak to each other or to share. And also we had our lives split physically. Michelle was stuck at the hospital, full on, like this, from one day to another. And I was full on with work, which obviously I get booked in advance. I could not possibly cancel my commitments. And importantly, my children, to pick them up from school, and going through the whole things, and also making sure they don't know. This was the other biggest problem, to lie to, after a month, 6 weeks, they start saying, where is Valentino, where is mom? And then they sadly found out from the playground at school play, they managed to hear things because the newspaper start to hold of the story. Somebody actually spoke about it without permissions. Also, I start canceling jobs. The one that could cancel, I start canceling. And obviously that didn't give me a good reputation because nobody knew the reason why I had to cancel the jobs. Therefore, we had to keep it very quiet. It's been a nightmare. We've been in a ghost tunnel, going fast, not sleeping, and we were constantly looking up and trying to see how long this is going to last. What is and therefore the question of the answer of your question is basically, it's been a long process, an exhausting process. It was frightening, and also not only so that we were not sure of what was happening, if he was going to survive, but also is this man come back to him again? Mm. It's like a yo-yo. It's non-stop. The question is why? Why him? Why has he done? Therefore, it's been tough because the days were longer, and when you spend long days and you don't actually know necessarily more where you stand, back to where you expect to know, and you don't have a clue, you're still queuing, you're still asking questions, and then there is more and more people trying to join in to try to find out what's going on, and you are lying, saying the truth, you're trying to avoid. It's been quite a very uncomfortable experience.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for explaining all of that to me. I can't even imagine how difficult all of that must have been for you and your family. So focusing a bit more on your son now, I know that obviously you're doing this interview today and you've done a lot of kind of interviews about it. Why have you felt that being so vocal about neuroblastoma in your family's case has been so important? What has motivated you so strongly to speak about it publicly?
Well, I think it's a matter of raising public awareness. And the things I do remember very much, even so we were driven just about one thing, is to make sure that kid, that little boy, her son, her loved one, which doesn't matter what happened. I remember I keep saying, it doesn't matter if we have to suffer, he has to have that chance to survive. The rest, we deal with it. Obviously, we did not realize what will happen to him after that, but it's no way at all that we will have permit this tiny human being, which is her blood, will have disappeared. It will be a disaster for us, for the kid, especially for us, for the whole of that, and God knows. Therefore, this is that things I remember. You need to. What was difficult is not knowing too much where we stood. or not having the right information, because you've got a lot of people trying to help you. I mean, there are so many things. Don't worry, it won't happen. It never happened to babies. Cancer do not happen to 6 weeks, but it did, and it does. Now, therefore, you got driven, you got excited about, oh, it might work, it might be that solution. This is, and gradually you realize that people trying to help you, but they're not, because they don't actually know exactly what's going on. Therefore, also because I did not say too much about, which was a mistake. Clearly, that was going on day to day. Obviously, we get fed with a lot of support, which were not actually supporting us. It was getting worse actually for us. It's better you don't speak rather than saying nothing, talking about nothing. Therefore, I think it's important that you open yourself up, and it's important that it makes you realize about mortality, and also it's important also to appreciate every days. And when you're dealing with a serious disease, it's a thing that you realize there is no choice. There is no choice at all. Therefore, and therefore, so on the point of your answer on this question, I think yes, it was very important to not to feel afraid of talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not that we had to, but sometimes it's also personally good for us. I mean, Michel was stuck in a hospital meeting, talking to no one. I mean, we did, and also we did not have any visits. It was a bit too raw. The situation was, therefore what happened is the only visit she had is me every day. I used to go sometimes twice a day, traveling down up to Cambridge, dropping the kids, I mean, we were very fortunate. We got help from friends, family, obviously, and they used to have like a rota. And even with them, you open up, but you feel that you waste your time. You feel that it's not the right approach. But somehow, when you go to your corner or to bed or whatever, or in a car driving on your own, you feel a bit better by speaking out. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's psychologically a better feeling, if that can help to make you stronger, and also to allow everybody to be aware of really what's going on. And I think people tend to see the finish line rather than the starting line, and it's a long way from both. And I think if we knew someone who knew exactly what was all this about, it would have helped us. We would be more patient, more calmer, less stress, less depressed. And yeah, I mean, it's not a nice word, that's for sure.
So my next question for you is kind of, obviously you've outlined a lot of challenges there in lots of different ways, and gone into that in a lot of depth, but what would you describe as the most significant challenges facing families impacted by rare diseases?
I think the most significant challenges to what families are facing is you need to remain positive. I know it's silly to speak like that, but you have no other ways on being stronger, to keep together. It's easy to argue, it's easy to get upset, and to work together, to be strong together, and try to face we both believe Valentino felt her stress, her pain. I mean, I can't describe because it's, but you could see him, he was like looking up, sometimes he was bleeding some red liquid from his eyes. Or he was just purely crying. That was his way out, because don't forget, he could not speak at six week old. And he was fixing, and we could see, especially Michel even more, that he was sucking in her soul, her way of. And I think it was important that we went there positive. We were trying to tackle it. I'm not saying that helped, but it can only be, a positive step. Therefore, we need to do that. We need to, like I said, to keep all together and positive and strong. Also, another thing which is part of the challenge is not to neglect your member of your family, like her two sons, for example. My daughter, which keep trying to call him. I did not know what to say. I didn't want to. My parents, for example, they did not know for 2 years that my then grandson was going through. It's no way I could tell them the truth. No way. Therefore, again, we were. Therefore, yeah, this is, like I said, you got to make sure you don't neglect member of your family, or most of them. What was difficult is to manage family life together with working life and obviously life with the disease. The three of them has been very difficult. And it's not like I can go somewhere, shut myself in a corner or behind a desk and nobody hear me. Sometimes I have to go on the top of a stage where people book me. They want a bit of, happiness and lectures and, and they want to have some kind of a good time. That's what we do. We sell good time and, and when you know what's happening to you and you haven't slept and you're there, because I could not say too much of the truth, and also don't forget it was quite early. A lot of people did not realize how very serious. Stage 4, when we found out stage 4 and we understood the different treatment options for the chemo, we were turning the pages and we're trying to understand. You can feel how much they tried, how well they did. Managed to tackle this situation. They were still also learning. And also they don't give you an answer, yes or no. Therefore, this is what people don't realize is you have to have a different attitude, which is completely different to your normal life. And also don't forget, you can't be impatient. I mean, in my kitchen, if something is not quick enough, I can bang the stove and things happen quick. I can have this sense of urgency on whatever, even in a restaurant, and we do it. But there, you can't force them because it's a process, and you have to have. They're there to help you. They're there every single day to save life. And I mean, I think once I saw someone who was a bit stoppy.
And so looking at, the treatments for rare diseases, I was wondering if you had any insights into why you think it might be important or not to listen to the patient, listen to the family, and listen to their experiences when looking at new treatments for rare diseases going forward.
They are specialists, they're specialists in learning quick, they are constant after the new answer, the new solution. But I think I've noticed too, they do speak to you a lot. They don't tell you too much what's going on, but they do try to find out and work out the steps of the problem. And I remember at the beginning, especially, we were talking a lot to them, even before knowing that it was a cancer, and even still before they realized exactly what cancer it was. Therefore, I think it's important that they can learn from us. They can learn how to deal with the disease. And I think to listen, the personal experience of the patients and the family side effects are obviously can only help for them to acknowledge, to expand, new options, and it's a fact. I think all the diseases are different. Even in a group, they are still very versatile. you know, and that's the problem. The specific disease doesn't look the same. They are numerous, they keep following each other, but they don't actually look the same. Only want to share with the family experience can only be, you know, a benefit.
And in terms of the treatment for neuroblastoma, what changes would you like to see going forward? What would you kind of suggest, I suppose, considering the experiences that you've had as the family of a patient?
In our own family experience, we were fortunate to that the whole medical team, from the most junior to the most senior specialist or consultant, which were very knowledgeable and very explaining to every step of the disease situation. We were constantly enough, not too much, but just enough. It's never been yes or no, but we've always been informed, turning around of a question, and that was, you might think it was ambiguous. It wasn't. It was, we're working on it, but they're feeding us accordingly to, and also they can't just tell us anything wrong. Therefore, that was very significant, and therefore, so I can not possibly, like I said, give you any improvement or suggestion. I praise the NHS and all the staff. I mean, for example, we were dealing with Dr. Burke, Amos Burke at Edinburgh, and many others, of course, but we were dealing more with him. And you knew when he was telling you something, we knew, obviously, as much as for us, make sure everything get better, but you knew when he says something, he was not trying to keep us happy, or he was, and that was very special, and very, very useful, and very, again, we're learning all the time, even up to the end, even up to the moment of when, luckily, her son had to go through the corridor and ring this famous bell, you know, obviously to allow him to escape from cancer. Even from that day, we still learn a lot. Therefore, for us to even consider to make a change would be ridiculous. Ridiculous. That's only on her case, yeah, and yeah.
No, I mean, it's great to hear that you had good experiences with the NHS and the medical professionals that you were dealing with. So then I guess focusing more on advice that you would give to other families who have been affected by neuroblastoma or any kind of rare disease, what advice would you give just as a parent who has dealt with that before?
I think if there's a small advice, because one thing is we're not expert. I know we had an experience, a traumatic experience, and we still sometimes think about it. But if there's some kind of advice, you need to listen to your medical team. Don't go too over, don't try to overstrong them. You know, don't try to because you are disappointed and sad and depressed. Listen to them. You know, even if they say something, it might not be entirely what you want to listen. But it's a very, very long process. That's the thing when you're dealing with a disease. I'm only talking about the experience we had, not because, once again, I don't want to lecture anyone. It's not even for me to do interviews. This is the first, I hope this will be the last time. It's purely because if that can help, that's fine. But frankly, I don't want to discuss it. We don't discuss it anymore. But it is important that those people are there. They are professionals. They know what they're talking. They study. They're constantly on the top of themselves. That's the first thing. Second, if you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask questions. And sometimes I remember I was not too sure if I could or may step in. I was a very different person than I am in my kitchen or in my restaurant or in my work. I step up anywhere, anything. There's nothing to stop me. But then I felt a little bit intimidated or with no knowledge or slow to learn, or I don't know. Therefore, I think it's important. Repeat the questions if you're not sure. Ask the question, repeat them, make sure it's clear, take notes, um, and grow with these things. We need to grow with this search, this research, because it's constantly searching the situation of our son. And thirdly, I think this is very important. I think it's important to keep days as it, take one day as they come. Don't see too much of ahead. And I think it is. I don't know. It might not work for somebody else, but for us, it was important that we, on the morning, like I said, I used to go there in the morning, on the evening. Therefore, it was like 2 days in one day, and then we step to the evening. Then we see about the morning, and we already have some question to ask for the morning during the experience of the evening. If I was not there, Michelle would have called me, and we were both sharing something that we might want to ask. Because obviously over there at the hospital is busy. It's more than one case. And also it's been a lot of unfortunate cases of sadly family losing a member of the family. And that's atrocious. It's awful when next day a little kid, because we were in a kid hospital, therefore we were dealing with only and then all of a sudden the parents are both coming, they're both in tears. You can see the boy is not the boy or the girl is not actually playing in a small area where they can more or less relax, and that's atrocious.
Of course, yeah. And in terms of, I don't know if you have any advice for yourself, looking back now, what would you tell yourself when your son first had his diagnosis? Is there anything that you would say to yourself in terms of how to cope with the next amount of time, or any kind of advice generally that you'd give to yourself?
Well, the things where we did not think of. Me personally, I would have gone through the same, much as my wife, we would have gone through the same extremes, because it's quite extremes. There's no limit. You don't know how long it's going to be. But you come to the point where, I know it's not right now because he's now off this cancer. Even so, he's got some serious personal issues still out of that, and also limitations, huge limitations. We don't know if it's related with the cancer time or not, but he's alive. Therefore, you come to the point where, there's only one thing you want, is that human being to be alive. Your mother, it's your eyes, it's your heart, it's your everything. And if he died, if he had to sadly to be passing away, obviously that means we are equally. But we forgot one thing. We forget something. Is 2 young siblings, very early age sibling. One was probably 4 at that time, and one was not even 7. And they did not understand. And when they realized something happened, the way for them to cope was very different to us. I used to cry in a car. Misha, we had a way of crying out. Anyway, you can't hold it. It's just, I remember I was doing a cooking course, and I was suddenly I start crying out forever. It's not me to cry, but it's just running out. Therefore, what I'm saying is they did not understand, but what they've done, that's one thing we've learned, and we will, if something, we need to be ready for that. It took them years to show off the sufferance, and it affects them at school. Obviously, they were not performing at school because we did not realize they were psychologically very traumatized. So it's 2 different types of being traumatized, internally, quietly, and the one who actually can see them, with side effects, like tears or saying things or, different moods. Therefore, I think that's the only thing we really realized that we missed out. The fact that 2 years later, it was official that they were, one of them had to obviously had to restart his year, Therefore, he's basically a year behind, and he's very bright. He's very good in maths, but he's, obviously he's a year behind to anybody of his age. And the other one was not doing very well at all. Therefore, like I said, the biggest mistake we've done out of many others, but that was the most flagrant, is those kids who seems to take on the problem actually were the worst one too. And now they're fine. Everything is fine now. It's fine because we know Valentino is going to be alive. We are 99.99%, even so it's been years since he's done all his tests. They've been very accurate. We know, and that's so important.
Really like to thank you for speaking to me today about this really sensitive and important subject. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much again for all your insights, for the advice that you've also shared with us. And yeah, I'm just wishing you and your family all the best. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Well, what I was going to say to terminate this interview, first, thank you to you, by the way. You did a very good job to interview me. It's the fact that it's probably the only interview in my life that I did not want it to really do. Why? Because I did not know what to say. I was going to say something. Normally, when I talk about something, when I get questioned, it's something regarding about my passion, my excitement. Things I've been doing for nearly 50 years of my life, cooking, or, But on this, it looked like we've turned the page. We keep thinking we've turned the page, and we are guaranteed we did. And by reopening this moment now with you, with all those questions, I hope this is going to help. And I hope also it's a way of saying thank you to all those members of the NHS I mentioned earlier, from the junior nurse, the most junior nurse, to the most senior consultant doctors and so on.